Imagine waking up one day and realizing you've never actually felt peace. Asterisk, not the kind of peace you find on a beach vacation, or in the temporary silence after an argument ends. No, we're talking about a silence so deep it threatens everything you've ever known. A quiet so foreign, it feels like a threat. Asterisk, so instead you scroll, you argue, you overthink. You make plans you secretly hope will fall apart. You pick fights you don't mean to win. You chase deadlines you didn't need to accept. You crave the noise and then complain about it. Asterisk, why? Asterisk, why do we spend our lives desperately longing for calm, for control, for clarity, and yet sabotage it every time it gets too close? Asterisk, is it because we fear stillness more than suffering? Asterisk, or is it something deeper, something far more unsettling? Asterisk, think about this. If peace is what we all claim to want, why do so many of us build our lives around chaos? Asterisk, why do we enter relationships that mirror the dysfunction we swore we'd escape? Asterisk, why do we stay in jobs that drain us, conversations that numb us, environments that suffocate us? Asterisk, why does quiet feel wrong and panic feel familiar? There's a sick comfort in chaos, a twisted sense of control in losing it. And once you've tasted that rhythm, the drama, the urgency, the pulse, it's almost impossible to sit in stillness without craving the crash. Asterisk, but no one wants to admit this. Asterisk, because to admit it means recognizing a horrifying truth, that we are not merely victims of the chaos. We are volunteers. Asterisk, you tell yourself you're overwhelmed, but deep down, you're orchestrating the storm. Asterisk, you say you're tired of toxic patterns, but on some level, you're addicted to them. Asterisk, because they give you something that peace never could. Distraction from facing your own inner emptiness. Asterisk, there's a reason people say, the devil you know is better than the angel you don't. Asterisk, because chaos, as destructive as it is, feels like home when your nervous system has been rewired to see calm as a threat. Asterisk, so you bounce from one crisis to another, not because you want the pain, but because the silence underneath it feels even more unbearable. Asterisk, and here's the kicker, the more you try to escape the chaos, the more you crave it. Asterisk, because chaos doesn't just happen around you, it lives within you, and until you face that, no amount of external order will ever make you feel safe. Asterisk, this isn't just self-sabotage. It's a ritual, a dance, a repetition of trauma disguised as personality. Asterisk, a comfort zone built from broken glass. Asterisk, and still, you call it life. Asterisk, what if your anxiety isn't just a response to stress, but a reaction to the absence of it? Asterisk, what if your restlessness is not a flaw, but a symptom of withdrawal from the chaos you've built your identity around? Asterisk, what if the very things you say you hate are the things you secretly believe you deserve? Asterisk, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote that suffering is the essence of life. Asterisk, but what if suffering isn't something life forces on us? What if it's something we unconsciously choose? Because without it, we have no story, no structure, no reason to wake up, no enemy to fight. If chaos gives us a sense of purpose, then peace becomes the threat to our identity. Asterisk, you've been programmed to run from stillness. Asterisk, from the awkward quiet between thoughts. Asterisk, from the mirror that shows you who you really are without the noise. Asterisk, and yet the irony is, everything you're looking for, peace, meaning, healing, is hidden inside the stillness you keep avoiding. So here we are, caught in the paradox. Asterisk, longing for silence, but fearing what it might reveal. Asterisk, craving peace, but addicted to pain. Asterisk, begging for change, but married to the chaos that's killing us slowly. Asterisk, what if this isn't your fault? Asterisk, what if it's deeper than personal weakness? Asterisk, what if it's the result of a psychological and philosophical trap, built long before you were ever born? Let's go there. Let's pull back the curtain. Asterisk, let's find out why the chaos feels like home, and what it's really hiding. Asterisk, you weren't born addicted to chaos. You were trained, not in a single moment, but through 1,000 subtle interactions. The way your parents responded to your tears, the way teachers rewarded performance but ignored emotion, the way society cheered you on when you were busy but looked at you with suspicion when you rested, asterisk. You didn't learn to seek chaos because you wanted to suffer, asterisk. You learned it because, somewhere along the way, your mind linked survival with noise, asterisk. Carl Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And nothing is more unconscious, more deeply buried in the psyche than your emotional blueprint, especially the blueprint built during childhood. Asterisk, consider this. If, as a child, calmness came right before an explosion, you learned to fear calm. Asterisk if silence meant emotional distance. You learned to associate connection with tension. Asterisk if love came through fixing, pleasing, or performing. You grew to believe chaos was the cost of affection. Asterisk and so chaos becomes not just a pattern but a core identity. Asterisk your nervous system wires itself to expect drama. Your subconscious scans for instability. Your inner world is filled with alarms even when there's nothing burning. Asterisk. This is not a moral failure. It's a psychological inheritance. You become a chaos connoisseur. You don't just tolerate stress, you master it. You thrive in emergencies. You feel alive only when everything is falling apart. Asterisk, but here's the cost. You lose the ability to feel safe in stillness. Because stillness asks questions that chaos silences. Stillness whispers, who are you without the fight? Asterisk, what happens if no one needs you to fix anything today? Asterisk, what would you hear if the noise stopped for just 1 hour? Asterisk, to the untrained mind. These are not peaceful questions. They are terrifying ones. So you run not because you're weak, but because you were never taught how to sit with them. Asterisk, Gabor Maté, a leading voice in trauma and addiction, says, addiction is not about the substance. It's about the pain. And chaos, in this view, is just another addiction, a socially accepted one, a culturally rewarded one. Asterisk, in fact, our entire culture is built around it. Modern society doesn't just tolerate chaos, it glorifies it. Productivity is measured in busyness. Success is defined by how much noise you generate. Even healing has become a competitive sport. Another thing to optimize. Asterisk in a world that moves too fast to feel, chaos becomes the only language we understand. Asterisk so when someone says, just relax, it sounds like nonsense. When someone says, you need to slow down, you feel threatened. When peace finally arrives, you don't trust it. Asterisk this isn't a flaw. This is conditioning. Asterisk and the worst part? You begin to mistake the symptoms for your personality. You think you're just anxious. Asterisk, you think you're just dramatic. Asterisk, you say things like, I work best under pressure, or I don't know how to rest, as if these are charming quirks. Not cries for help, but at the philosophical core, this goes deeper than psychology. It reaches into how we define meaning itself. Asterisk Nietzsche, the prophet of existential discomfort, once said, to live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. And here lies the trap. If you believe suffering is where meaning is found, then chaos becomes the birthplace of identity. Asterisk peace becomes emptiness. Asterisk and stillness becomes death. Asterisk you cling to the chaos, not because you want pain, but because without it, you fear you'll be nothing. Asterisk in your moments of deepest stillness, you may hear the whisper, who am I if I'm not fixing, fighting, or fearing something? Asterisk this is the existential anxiety Sartre spoke of. He called it nausea, the raw confrontation with freedom, with formlessness. The moment where your identity slips through your fingers and you're forced to confront the absurdity of it all. Chaos distracts from that confrontation. It gives you something to do, something to fight, something to fear. And that something becomes your anchor. So we become a society of chaos chasers. We create emergencies out of boredom. We ignite conflict to feel connection. We stir drama to avoid depth. Asterisk and slowly, chaos stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like you. You normalize it, and in that normalization, you miss the most tragic truth of all. You were never meant to live this way. Your nervous system wasn't built to be constantly activated. Your soul wasn't meant to be at war with itself. Your spirit wasn't designed to only come alive through destruction. Asterisk, but how would you know? Asterisk when every movie, every news cycle, every social feed screams urgency and catastrophe. How do you learn the language of calm? Asterisk, how do you trust peace when it feels like surrender? Asterisk, how do you reclaim yourself from an addiction that society keeps feeding? There's an answer, but it isn't easy. It demands you do something almost no one is willing to do. Break the contract with chaos. But before you can do that, you must first see what that chaos is doing to you. Asterisk, not just mentally or emotionally, but neurologically, physically, spiritually, because the cost of chaos is greater than you think, and it's being paid. Every day you don't even realize you're still caught in the loop. Asterisk, it starts small. Asterisk, a missed call you didn't return, a night where your mind wouldn't quiet, a simple choice scroll instead of sleep. Asterisk, you brush it off. Everyone does this. You tell yourself, no big deal, asterisk, but slowly. The lines blur between a bad habit and a way of life. Asterisk between occasional overwhelm and permanent overstimulation. Asterisk between reacting to chaos and needing it to feel something. Asterisk because when the brain is constantly bombarded by noise, it forgets what silence feels like. Asterisk, and when the nervous system is always on edge, it begins to rewire itself expecting tension, even when none exists. Asterisk, you wake up exhausted, even after sleep. You feel alone, even when surrounded. You're chasing rest, but rest feels foreign. Asterisk, you're craving peace. But peace feels unsafe. Asterisk. That's the first consequence of chaos addiction. Disconnection from reality. Asterisk. Not the physical world. You still go to work, pay bills, smile when you're supposed to. But emotionally, spiritually, you become a ghost in your own life. Your attention fractures, your memory slips, your joy dulls, and your ability to feel deeply real intimacy, real presence, real awe fades like a radio signal in a storm. Asterisk because chaos numbs you, slowly, quietly, expertly. Asterisk, your brain's reward system, its dopamine circuitry starts firing only when urgency appears. You begin needing conflict to feel alive, and everything else boring, flat, unimportant. Asterisk, you can't read a full page of a book without reaching for your phone. Asterisk, you can't sit in silence for 30 seconds without your leg bouncing. Asterisk, you can't finish a task without opening 5 new tabs. Asterisk, your brain is no longer designed for peace, it's calibrated for crisis. Asterisk, and this isn't just a quirk of modern life. It's biological. It's neurological hijacking. Asterisk, researchers have shown that constant exposure to stress reshapes the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and emotion. It becomes hyperactive, hypersensitive, like a smoke detector that keeps going off even when there's no fire. Asterisk, meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reflection, rational thought, self-regulation, begins to atrophy. Asterisk means the more chaos you experience, the harder it becomes to step back and see it clearly. Asterisk, you're stuck in a storm you can't recognize, because the storm has become your sky. Asterisk, and this rewiring doesn't just impact your brain, it shapes your relationships, your choices, your identity. Think about how many people you know who fall for the same kind of emotionally unavailable partners again and again. Asterisk, constantly shift goals, never finishing anything. Asterisk, burn bridges, sabotage calm moments, pick fights with people who love them. Asterisk, this isn't stupidity. This is neuro-association. Their brains associate intensity with love, conflict with connection, uncertainty with normalcy. So when peace shows up, it feels like something's wrong. Asterisk, they self-sabotage not out of malice, but out of pattern, and society reinforces this. Look at the content that goes viral, the news stories that lead, the shows we binge, drama, fear, scandal, outrage. Asterisk, calm wisdom rarely trends. Deep introspection rarely sells. Peace is not marketable, but panic is. Asterisk, and so we consume chaos not just through our experiences, but through our screens, our culture, our conversations. Asterisk, until the line between what we choose and what chooses us vanishes. This leads to the second consequence, erasure of self. When everything is noise, your inner voice gets drowned out. Asterisk, you stop knowing what you want, you stop asking who you are, you stop trusting your own instincts. Asterisk, because your identity was never truly built. It was just a series of reactions to chaos, asterisk, and so, when you finally have a moment of quiet, you feel hollow. Asterisk, you chase more drama. More stimulation, more chaos not out of desire, but desperation, asterisk, not for thrill, but to escape the silence that threatens to reveal there's nothing solid underneath, asterisk, this. Is the tragedy, asterisk, chaos becomes the mask you wear, until you forget there was ever a face beneath it. Jean-Paul Sartre warned us of this in his work on bad faith. Living a life that is not truly your own, but rather a performance. A denial of freedom. A distraction from the weight of existence. Asterisk, he argued that when you refuse to confront your true freedom and responsibility, you escape into roles, into noise, into chaos, asterisk, and yet ironically, tragically, this escape leads not to liberation, but existential entrapment. You think you're avoiding suffering by clinging to the chaos, but you're only prolonging it, feeding it, strengthening it, becoming it, asterisk, the final consequence. You mistake survival for living. You get good at managing emergencies, asterisk, you become efficient, productive, sharp, asterisk, but inside, you're numb. You don't cry at things that used to move you. You don't laugh with your belly anymore, asterisk. You don't dream without doubting yourself midway through, asterisk. You're alive, but only technically, asterisk, because life without stillness is just motion, life without reflection is just repetition, and life without peace is just chaos in disguise, asterisk, the worst part. You think this is normal, but it's not, asterisk, it's just common. There's a difference. Common is what most people experience. Normal is what your soul was built for. And somewhere, deep down, you know that, asterisk, you feel it in the tension in your chest before you fall asleep. You feel it in the restlessness you can't name. You feel it in the quiet moments when chaos pauses and something inside you whispers, asterisk, there's more than this. There has to be more, and there is, but first, you have to break the cycle, asterisk, and that begins. With rebellion, it doesn't begin with a breakthrough. It begins with a breakdown, asterisk, the kind where you look around your life and feel like a stranger in your own story. The kind where even your coping mechanisms stop working. Where the chaos that once energized you now just makes you sick, asterisk, this is where the rebellion begins, asterisk. Not with a loud scream, but with a quiet decision. I'm done living like this. At first, that rebellion feels like death, because when you walk away from chaos, you're not just changing habits, you're letting go of the version of yourself that survived through pain. You're grieving a part of you that knew how to dance in the fire, even if it meant being burned alive. Asterisk, but make no mistake. This grief is sacred. It's your initiation. You're not losing yourself. You're finally meeting the real you beneath. The smoke, the noise, the performance, asterisk. So how do you break free? You stop feeding the chaos. That doesn't mean moving to a cabin in the woods or deleting every app. It means something far more radical. It means retraining your nervous system to find safety in stillness. Asterisk. Start here, asterisk 1, practice doing nothing and notice the panic that follows. Asterisk, sit in silence, no phone. No tasks, just you, asterisk, watch what your mind does, the fidgeting, the urge to distract, the stories that arise, asterisk, most people never get past this stage. They feel discomfort and assume it's a sign to stop. But it's not. It's a sign that your nervous system is detoxing from years of overstimulation, asterisk, this discomfort is sacred. It's the space where the chaos loses its grip, asterisk, greater than 2. Reclaim your attention, asterisk, your mind is not a dumping ground for notifications, breaking news and opinions from strangers you'll never meet, asterisk, start treating attention like currency because it is, asterisk, if you give it away freely, you'll live a life designed by algorithms and advertisers. But if you protect it, nurture it, focus it, you'll start to remember what it feels like to think for yourself. Asterisk 3. Interrupt the pattern. Asterisk, the next time you feel the urge to stir drama, to create urgency, to escape the moment, pause, asterisk, ask yourself, asterisk, what am I avoiding right now? Asterisk, what silence am I trying to fill? Asterisk, most chaos is not random. It's ritual. And rituals can be interrupted. Asterisk, just one pause, one deep breath can begin to unravel. Years of unconscious patterning, greater than 4, build a new identity, one not based on crisis. For years, your value may have come from being the fixer, the rescuer, the fighter. You were the one who held it all together when everything was falling apart. Asterisk, but what if you're more than your ability to endure? Asterisk, what if strength isn't just surviving the storm, but choosing to step out of it? Asterisk greater than 5, redefine. Peace. Asterisk for someone addicted to chaos. Peace can feel like boredom, like weakness, like giving up. This is a lie. Peace is not the absence of life. It's the presence of depth. It's not passive, it's powerful. To sit with yourself, without distraction, without defense, that takes more courage than any argument, any hustle, any breakdown. Asterisk, as Viktor Frankl once said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Rebellion happens in that space. It happens every time you choose reflection over reaction. Asterisk. Stillness over noise, truth over drama, and it doesn't require perfection. Just persistence. Asterisk. There will be days you fall back into chaos. You'll chase the rush, you'll stir the pot. You'll pick the familiar pain over the unknown peace. Asterisk, that's okay. Asterisk, the goal isn't to never fall back. It's to fall back less and return to yourself faster. Asterisk, and with time, the addiction loosens. The urgency fades. The silence becomes music. The stillness becomes sacred. Asterisk, you begin to see chaos for what it really is. A mask. A distraction. A beautiful liar. Asterisk, and in its place, something extraordinary begins to emerge. Clarity, focus, authenticity. The parts of you that were buried beneath noise begin to breathe. Asterisk, you laugh differently. You listen differently. You move through the world with a softness that isn't weakness, but power under control. Asterisk, you begin to trust calm. Asterisk, because now you know peace isn't the absence of meaning. It's where meaning begins. Asterisk, and as you step further into this rebellion, you begin to realize something even more radical. You were never addicted to chaos. You were addicted to avoiding yourself. Asterisk, but now you're ready to meet the you who lives on the other side of noise. The you who doesn't need a crisis to feel worthy. Asterisk. The you who can rest without guilt. The you who can love without rescuing. The you who can exist without escaping. Asterisk, this is not the end of the rebellion. It's the beginning of your return. And if you're willing to go just a little further, asterisk, you might discover a truth so deep, so liberating, that everything, every breakdown, every addiction, every storm will finally make sense. Asterisk, are you ready? You were never broken. You were overstimulated, underheard, and misunderstood. Asterisk, you weren't born addicted to chaos. You were born open, wide-eyed, vulnerable, ready to feel everything. But the world handed you noise and told you to survive in it, and so you did. But now, after all the panic, the collapse, the cycles, you're standing on the other side, blinking in the strange light of stillness. Asterisk, and here's the final, most powerful realization. Asterisk, the chaos wasn't the enemy. It was the teacher. It showed you every place you didn't trust yourself, every wound you tried to outrun, every identity you borrowed to feel safe. It was never about the arguments, the overthinking, the constant stimulation. Asterisk, it was always about a deeper question, echoing through your bones. Asterisk, who am I, when there is no crisis left to fix? That question doesn't haunt you anymore. It awakens you. Asterisk, because here's the truth you were never told. Asterisk, greater than your soul was not made for endless survival. It was made for creation. Asterisk, not just productivity, not just routine, not just balance. Creation, the conscious building of a life you don't need to escape from. Asterisk, a life with space for slowness, for mystery, for stillness so profound it becomes a mirror reflecting the real you beneath all the coping, all the chaos, all the noise. Asterisk, and now that reflection is becoming clear. Asterisk, you see that all your so-called flaws, your hypervigilance, your overthinking, your need to control were never flaws at all. Asterisk. They were brilliant adaptations in a world that taught you peace was dangerous. Asterisk, you don't need to shame yourself anymore. Asterisk, You don't need to apologize for how you survived, asterisk, but you also don't need to keep surviving. Now you get to live, and living looks different, asterisk, it's not glamorous. It's not always aesthetic, asterisk, it's raw, it's simple. It's sacred. It looks like waking up and not needing to check your phone, like eating without rushing, asterisk, like breathing and actually feeling the breath. It looks like setting boundaries without drama, like sitting with discomfort without making it into a movie, asterisk, like finally realizing you don't have to earn rest, asterisk, because the final illusion that chaos kept you from seeing was this, asterisk, you are enough without the noise, asterisk, not when you're perfect, not when you're healed, not when you've mastered the algorithm of life, asterisk, now, in this moment, exactly as you are, asterisk, you don't need the chaos anymore because you've found something deeper, inner authority, the ability to choose your response, asterisk, the power to direct your energy, asterisk, the awareness to know when something serves your truth or silences it, asterisk, you don't need to react. You don't need to perform. You don't need to prove. You can simply be. And in that being, in that space of quiet aliveness, you meet yourself fully for the first time. This is what the philosophers and mystics always pointed toward. Nietzsche called it becoming the Bermensch, the higher self, who creates values from within rather than obeying inherited ones. Asterisk Jung called it individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating the conscious and unconscious self. Asterisk Frankl called it meaning the defiant search for purpose in the face of suffering, asterisk, and all of them were saying the same thing. You are not here to be a puppet pulled by unseen strings of chaos. You are here to wake up, to see the pattern, to feel the pain, to break the loop, to reclaim your authorship, asterisk. Because the moment you stop needing chaos to feel alive is the moment you start choosing life on your terms, asterisk, you become the stillness in the storm, not because you avoid it, but because you've been through enough to no longer fear it, asterisk, that's not weakness. That's power, real power, the kind that doesn't need to yell or fix or perform, asterisk, the kind that simply is unshaken, rooted, awake, asterisk, so the next time the world tries to pull you back into its rhythm of noise, ask yourself, asterisk, is this chaos calling me home, asterisk, or is it trying to make me forget I already am home? Asterisk, the next time you feel that itch for stimulation, that craving for conflict, that urge to scroll, shout, or run, pause, close your eyes, breathe, and whisper to yourself, I don't need this anymore. Because you don't, not anymore, asterisk. The addiction is broken, the war is over, and in the quiet that follows, you'll find something that chaos could never give you, asterisk. Peace that doesn't depend on the world being different. Joy that doesn't need to be earned. Wholeness that was. Never missing, just buried under the noise. You are here, you are whole, you are free.